Hi everybody. Today let's talk about the anatomy of the eyeball. As you all know, eyeball is situated where? Inside the orbital cavity of the skull, and it's well protected by the bony structures in there. Eye is like a camera that produces images. Now, before I tell you the structures in brief, the structures and its function in brief, let's go through the image of an eyeball. All right. Here what you see is the eyelid, okay? The white part here, that is the sclera. This entire portion is your cornea. You have a muscle here which is like this, and that is called as the iris. This muscle has a small opening at the center called as the pupil. Now, if we take a sagittal section of the eyeball, what do you mean by sagittal section? If you divide the eyeball into equal right and left halves, that image you get is called as the sagittal image, alright? This part, that is the anterior 1/6 of the eyeball, is the cornea. The posterior 5/6 portion of the eyeball, this white part, that is the sclera. This muscle you see here, that is what? It is the iris, which continues as the ciliary body. Okay, so this is the ciliary body, here this and this. The ciliary body continues as the vascular structure, that is the choroid. Okay, now here you have the lens. Behind the lens there is a gel called as the vitreous humor, and anteriorly, that is over here, the eyeball is filled with aqueous humor. From the eyeball exits a nerve, and what is that nerve called as? The optic nerve. So these are the structures of the eyeball. Eyeball has got 3 layers, or we call it coats of the eyeball. The outer fibrous coat, the middle vascular coat, and the inner nervous coat. Let me repeat it again. The outer fibrous coat, middle vascular coat, and the inner nervous coat. The outer fibrous layer has got the sclera and the cornea. The middle vascular layer has got 3 structures. We have the iris, the ciliary body, and the choroid. The ciliary body continues as the choroid. The inner nervous layer has got a structure called as retina. Next, we'll talk about the cornea. Okay, so this cornea, you see the picture, it's transparent and it acts as a refractive medium. So what does it do? What is the function of cornea? It allows the light rays to pass through. Since it is transparent, it acts as a refractive medium. What is the other function? It bends these light rays to focus image on the retina. So what does it do? Again, it bends the light rays entering the eye, the cornea, okay, and it forms an image on the retina. Now, one question. What do you call the junction between the cornea and the sclera? See the picture here? Area where the cornea meets the sclera, this area, okay, that is called as the limbus. What is the significance of limbus? In limbus, we have the ocular stem cells, which help in regeneration of the eye surface in case of an eye injury. All right. The next part is the sclera. You see the white part of the eye? Yes? Okay, that is the sclera. It's an opaque structure. Since it is opaque, it does not allow the light rays to pass through. It has got a lot of nerves, vessels, and the extraocular muscles attach themselves to the sclera. That is why when you move your eyes how do you move your eyes? With the help of extraocular muscles. You can see the sclera also moves along, right? Okay. Posteriorly, the sclera continues, and behind the eyeball, like the posterior side, not behind the eyeball, the posterior side, it moves, and posteriorly it forms a structure called as a sieve-like structure, which is called as what? Lamina cribrosa. Now, what is the function of lamina cribrosa? It allows the exit of a nerve from the eye. Which nerve? Optic nerve. So posteriorly, the sclera forms a sieve-like structure called as lamina cribrosa, which allows the exit of the optic nerve. Alright. Can you tell me what is the function of limbus? What is limbus? It is the junction between the cornea and the sclera. Okay, this part. Okay. So what is the function? See, it acts as a storehouse. Storehouse of what? Ocular stem cells. As you might know, the stem cells are the ones that regenerate and helps in repair of tissues in case of an injury. So in case there is an injury to the surface of the eye, okay, these stem cells will regenerate and make it okay. So where are these stem cells located? At the limbus. Next, we'll talk about iris. Now before that, let's see the picture of iris. Okay, that is a muscle in the eye, and the pupil. So the structure that you see here, okay, this muscle, that is the iris. Iris has a central opening, as I mentioned before, which is called as the pupil. What is the function of iris? It helps to regulate the amount of light falling into the eye. Now, why do you need to regulate the amount of light entering the eye? See, when a lot of light enters the eye, it can damage your retina. And when little of light enters the eye, you may not be able to see the object clearly. So it should always be in moderate amount. And who helps in it? Yes, the iris. Iris is acted upon by two muscles, sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae, that help to regulate the amount of light falling into the eye. Let's talk about it with an example. See, you enter a bright light area. When you enter a bright light area, the sphincter pupillae acts on the iris, and this makes the pupil small so that the light falling into the eye is in moderate amount and not much. When you enter a dim light area, what happens is you need more of light to pass through the eye. So which muscle acts on the iris? The dilator pupillae acts on the iris, and this makes the pupil bigger so that more of the light rays can pass through it and the object can be seen much clearly. In short, iris regulates the amount of light falling into the eye, and also one more function is there for iris. Yes, it gives color to the eye. See, just like fingerprints, iris can be used for identification. Iris identification technologies are used these days to identify individuals. Next is the ciliary body. To understand in detail about ciliary body, you need an image. Let's go to that, okay? You can see here, this is a lens. Attached to the lens is the iris. You see here, this is the iris. Iris continues as a ciliary body. See, this is a ciliary body. Now, this ciliary body has got two parts. The part of the ciliary body which has got these projections, can you see these projections? That part is called as pars plicata. And the part of the ciliary body which is plain, this part, this part is called as pars plana. Good. Now, from the ciliary body arises band-like structures. You see here, these ones. These are the zonules, and these zonules help to keep the lens in position. Moving on to the function of ciliary body. The first function of ciliary body is accommodation. Now, what is this accommodation? See, even when the distance of the object changes, we're able to see the object clearly. I'll tell you with an example. Look at this pen. It's a few meters away from me and I can see it well. Okay. When I bring this pen close to my eyes, even now I can see the pen clearly. Okay. So the distance has changed, but I can see the image clearly. So accommodation is a process by which the eye adjusts itself to see the object clearly even when the distance of the object is changing. Alright, so that is called as accommodation, and that is done by ciliary body. The other function of ciliary body is the formation of aqueous humor. Let's talk in detail about aqueous humor later. Alright, see, it is a watery fluid that fills the anterior segment of the eyeball. Tell me, which structure gives nutrition to the eyeball and removes toxins from the eyeball? Which structure? It is the choroid. Okay. Next, talking about the retina. Image is formed on the retina, and that process is called as neural perception. Retina continues as the optic nerve. Moving on to the lens. Lens divides the eyeball into two parts, the anterior segment and the posterior segment. Now, some people get confused about which is the anterior segment, which is the anterior chamber. For that, let's have a look at the image. It's very simple. See, this is a lens, okay? And the lens divides the eyeball into two parts. The part that is in front, okay, this part is called as the anterior segment, and the whole part behind is called as the posterior segment. Now, let me just draw it. This is the anterior segment, the whole part in front of the lens, and the whole part behind this part is the posterior segment. Now, this anterior segment is divided into two parts by the iris. See, this is the iris. The anterior segment is divided into the anterior chamber. This area which is in front of the iris is called as the anterior chamber, and the part that is behind the iris, you can see this part, that is the part between the iris and the lens. This part is the posterior chamber, and both the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber both are filled with which fluid? Yes, aqueous humor. Can you tell me what produces, or which structure of the eye produces aqueous humor? Yes, it is the ciliary body. It is a ciliary body of the eye that produces aqueous humor. Which part of the ciliary body? It is a pars plicata. Aqueous humor provides nutrition to the lens, the cornea, and it drains through this angle here, that is the angle formed by the cornea and the iris. Okay, that is called as the angle of anterior chamber. So the aqueous humor is drained through this angle. Now, in case there is an obstruction at this angle, what happens to the aqueous humor? Yes, the aqueous humor builds up in the anterior chamber, and this increases the intraocular pressure, leading to a condition called as glaucoma. Lens is a transparent structure. Therefore, it acts as a refractive medium, and it also helps in accommodation. There was one more structure that helps in accommodation. I had mentioned before, yes, it is a ciliary body. This aqueous humor is produced by the pars plicata of the ciliary body and fills the anterior chamber. What is the function of aqueous humor? It provides nutrition to the lens, to the cornea. It maintains the intraocular pressure, And after its job is done, that is giving nutrition to the cornea or the lens, it moves out or it drains through which area? The ankle of anterior chamber. Alright, I had shown you the ankle of anterior chamber in the image. Now when this ankle of anterior chamber is obstructed, the aqueous humor cannot be drained, and this increases the intraocular pressure, which leads to a condition called as what? Glaucoma. Alright, glaucoma can be discussed someday later. Next is a vitreous humor. Unlike the aqueous humor, the vitreous humor is a gel, whereas aqueous humor was what? It was a watery fluid, right? Now this vitreous humor fills the posterior segment of the eyeball. It gives shape to the eyeball and it maintains the intraocular pressure. Both this aqueous humor and the vitreous humor, both are transparent and they both act as a refractive medium too. Alright. Now can you tell me the structures which help in refraction? I mean all the transparent structures. Yes, we have aqueous humor, vitreous humor, the cornea and the lens. That's all about the anatomy of the eyeball. Thank you.